I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. What I'm about to tell you will show you that sometimes the people who call our blood dirty are the ones who should be looking in the mirror. I found my daughter Nancy in the woods outside of town, barely alive. Her face was beaten beyond recognition. Her arm hung at an unnatural angle. And when she opened her swollen eyes and whispered the name of who did this to her, my entire world shattered. It was her mother-in-law, Victoria Sterling, the woman who'd smiled at our family dinners, the woman who ran a charity foundation helping sick children, the woman who behind closed doors called us dirty blood because of the color of my skin. But Victoria Sterling had no idea who she was dealing with. She thought she could destroy my daughter and walk away. She was wrong. This is the story of how my family fought back and won. October in rural Missouri comes hard and cold, the kind of cold that creeps under your jacket no matter how many layers you wear. I was driving home from the farmer's market that Thursday evening, my old Chevy humming along the broken dirt road like it had for the past 15 years. The bed of my truck was full of apples, late-season Honeycrisps perfect for the jam I'd been making every fall since Nancy was a little girl. She used to stand on a step stool in our kitchen, stirring the pot while I chopped fruit. Those were simpler times. Better times. I'm Betty Vaughn, 56 years old, widow, retired nurse, and until that phone call I thought the hardest parts of my life were behind me. The phone rang just as I hit a particularly nasty pothole. The ancient Nokia in my jacket pocket, yes, I still use one of those dinosaurs and it's never let me down, vibrated against my ribs. Unknown number. I don't usually answer unknown numbers. Scammers mostly. But something made me pick up. Hello, Betty Vaughn, a man's voice. Out of breath. Scared. That's me. You need to come, now. The woods behind the old quarry. You know where that is. My heart stuttered. Who is this? It's Sam. Sam Parker. I live across the river. I'm a hunter. He paused and I heard him swallow hard. Ma'am, I found your daughter. The road disappeared. The steering wheel felt like ice in my hands. What do you mean you found her? Nancy's in the city. She's here, in bad shape, real bad. She had her ID on her. Your number's listed as emergency contact. His voice cracked. I already called 911, but it's going to take them forever to get out here. You need to hurry. I didn't remember turning the truck around. Didn't remember the 7 miles of logging road I flew down, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. All I could think about was Nancy, my baby girl, 32 years old, married to Blake Sterling for 8 years, living in that big house in the state capital 100 miles away. She called every Sunday, but her voice always sounded careful, measured, like she was reading from a script. Everything's fine, Mom, just busy with work. But mothers know. We always know when something's wrong with our children. The quarry appeared around a bend in the road. An abandoned pit overgrown with pine trees where we used to swim as kids. Sam Parker's pickup truck sat at the edge with its doors open. He was pacing beside it, his camouflage jacket splattered with mud. I killed the engine and jumped out before the truck fully stopped. Where? He pointed toward the tree line. About 100 yards in. I didn't want to move her. Didn't know if anything was broken. I ran. Branches whipped my face. My boots sank into the rain-soaked earth. My lungs burned. But I didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. And then I saw her. She lay curled on her side beneath a scraggly oak tree, exactly the way she used to sleep as a child when she had nightmares. But this wasn't a nightmare we could wake up from. Her designer coat, I recognized it from a video call last month, pale blue cashmere, was torn and covered in mud and blood. Her face was swollen, bruised purple and black. One eye was completely shut, the other barely open, glassy with pain. Nancy, my voice broke on her name. I dropped to my knees beside her, terrified to touch her, terrified not to. Her right arm lay at an angle that made my nurse's training scream. Broken. Definitely broken. Mom, the word came out slurred like she was drunk. But I knew a concussion when I saw one. 30 years working in the county hospital's emergency room hadn't been for nothing. I'm here, baby. I'm here. I touched her hair so gently, avoiding the matted blood at her temple. The ambulance is coming. Just hold on. No. She tried to sit up, gasped in pain, fell back. No hospital. Mom, please. No hospital. Nancy, they have people everywhere. Her good eye found mine, and what I saw there stopped my heart. Pure terror. Victoria. It was Victoria. She said. Nancy's voice dropped to barely a whisper. She said I have dirty blood. The world tilted. Victoria Sterling, Nancy's mother-in-law, the elegant society woman who ran the Hope Foundation, one of the largest children's charities in the state. The woman who smiled with her mouth but never with her eyes when she looked at me. The woman who at Nancy's wedding 8 years ago had asked if my family had always lived in this rural area. The way she said rural made it sound like a disease. Your mother-in-law did this to you. Nancy nodded, then whimpered at the movement. I found something. Documents. She's stealing from the foundation. Millions, Mom. I asked her about it and tears slid from her swollen eye. She said I was a disgrace, that my blood had no place in their family. Something hot and terrible rose in my chest. Rage. Pure burning rage. But underneath it, something colder. Calculation. The same instinct that kept me calm during 30 years of medical emergencies. Nancy, listen to me. Are you hurt anywhere else? Your stomach, your chest? She touched her ribs with her good hand, winced. Hurts to breathe. But Mom, she grabbed my jacket with surprising strength. I'm pregnant. 12 weeks. Blake doesn't even know yet. Oh God. My grandbaby. Nancy was carrying my grandbaby, and that monster had... In the distance, a siren wailed. The ambulance. I had maybe 3 minutes to make a decision that would change everything. Nancy's fingers dug into my jacket. If I go to the hospital, Blake will take me back to that house, and she'll finish what she started. Her voice was steady despite the pain. Steady and absolutely certain. She told me no one would believe me, not with my background. My background. My dirty blood. The same blood running through Nancy's veins. The same blood growing in her belly right now. I looked at my daughter's broken face and made my choice. Sam, I called, standing up. Sam Parker. He appeared through the trees, looking relieved to hand over responsibility to someone else. The ambulance is almost... Did you see who brought her here? No, ma'am. I was hunting mushrooms. Found her by accident when I heard her moaning. It was already getting dark. The siren was getting louder. Maybe 2 minutes now. Sam, I need you to trust me. I met his eyes. My daughter is in danger. The person who did this has money and connections. If Nancy goes to the hospital, they'll silence her. Or worse. His eyes widened. Lady, she needs medical attention. Could be internal. I'm a registered nurse with 30 years' experience. I can take care of her. I moved closer, lowering my voice. I need you to tell the paramedics it was a false alarm, that you made a mistake. But please, I didn't beg often. But for Nancy, for my grandbaby, I'd beg. She's my daughter, and I'm the only one who can protect her right now. Sam looked at Nancy, then back at me. Something in my face must have convinced him because he nodded slowly. Okay, but if she gets worse, I'll take full responsibility. He nodded again, then jogged back toward the road. I returned to Nancy's side. Can you stand? The truck isn't far. I think so. It took us 15 agonizing minutes to get her to my Chevy. Every step made her gasp. By the time I got her settled in the passenger seat, she was gray-faced and trembling. Through the trees, I could see the flash of red and blue lights. Sam was talking to the paramedics, gesturing, shaking his head. Probably saying he'd been mistaken, had found a deer instead, was real sorry for wasting their time. God bless that man. I climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. No headlights until we were far from the quarry. Nancy's head lolled against the window. Mom, her voice was faint. I took pictures of the documents. Before. They're on my phone, in my bag. Smart girl, always was. Where's your bag? Back seat, I think. She didn't take it. Probably wanted it to look like a robbery. I felt behind me, found the leather purse. Expensive. The kind Blake's money could buy, but couldn't make meaningful. Got it. We drove in silence for a mile. Then Nancy spoke again. I'm scared. I know, baby. Not for me. Her good hand moved to her stomach. For the baby. What if I lose? You won't. I said it with every ounce of certainty I could muster, even though my own fear was a living thing in my throat. You're strong. You come from strong women. Your great-grandmother Zora survived things that would have broken other people. And you will too. Nancy was quiet for a moment. Then, tell me about her. About Grandma Zora. So I did. I told her about my grandmother, a black woman who fell in love with a white man named Nick Vaughn in 1945, when such things could get you killed. Who married him anyway and raised a family in a town that whispered behind their backs. Who held her head high every single day and taught her children and grandchildren to do the same. Dirty blood, I said softly. That's what they called her too. But Grandma Zora used to tell us, the ones who think blood can be dirty are the ones with poison in their hearts. Nancy smiled slightly, or tried to. Her split lip made it look more like a grimace. I should have listened to you, about Blake's family. Shh, we'll talk about that later. Right now, we just need to get you safe. As we drove through the darkness, I was already making lists in my head. Medical supplies, food, a place to hide, and most importantly, someone who could help us fight back. My brother, Vincent. We were 5 miles from my house when Nancy suddenly stiffened. Mom, stop the truck. What, why? Just stop, please. I pulled over onto the shoulder. Nancy was fumbling with her phone, her good hand shaking. She pulled up an app I didn't recognize. 3 months ago, Blake insisted on taking your truck to his mechanic, said it needed work. She turned the screen toward me. I saw this app on his phone. He thought I was asleep. A GPS tracking app. And there on the map was a little blue dot, my truck. They've been watching you, Nancy whispered. Watching where you go, who you see. They've been keeping tabs on me through you. I felt sick. All those times I'd thought I was being paranoid, feeling watched in the grocery store. It wasn't paranoia. We need to find it. I was already getting out of the truck. Now. It took me 10 minutes with my flashlight lying on my back in the cold mud, but I found it. A small black box magnetically attached to the frame under the driver's seat. Professional. Expensive. I held it in my hand, this tiny thing that represented such a massive invasion. Then I made a decision. We're not destroying it, I said, getting back in the truck. Not yet. Let them think they know where we are. Nancy looked confused, but she was too exhausted to question it. By the time we pulled up to my house, a small log home on 5 acres outside of town, she was barely conscious. I got her inside onto my couch and started the real work. The house was cold. I'd left that morning without bothering to stoke the fire. Now I moved quickly, getting the wood stove going, grabbing my medical supplies from the bathroom closet. Nancy lay on the couch, small and broken, so different from the confident young woman who'd graduated college summa cum laude, the one who'd landed a job as a financial analyst at a prestigious firm, the one who'd fallen in love with Blake Sterling and thought she was getting a fairy tale. I'd seen the red flags. The way Blake always checked his phone during family dinners. The way he'd defer to his mother on everything from what restaurant to choose to what color to paint their bedroom. The way Nancy slowly stopped talking about her own opinions and started saying Blake thinks and Victoria says. But you can't protect your children from every mistake. Sometimes they have to learn the hard way. I just never imagined the lesson would nearly kill her. Okay, baby, I need to check you over properly now. I helped her out of her ruined coat. Underneath her silk blouse was torn and blood-stained. I'm going to be as gentle as I can, but this might hurt. It did hurt. She whimpered when I palpated her ribs. 2 broken, possibly 3. The wrist was definitely fractured. I could feel the bone displaced under the skin. The head wound was superficial, thank God, but the concussion was moderate. I need to splint your wrist, and we need to get you something for the pain, but... I hesitated. With the pregnancy, I know. Nancy's voice was stronger now, more alert. Adrenaline, probably. What can I take acetaminophen? It's safe. Not as strong as I'd like, but it won't hurt the baby. I worked for the next hour. Cleaned her wounds, splinted the wrist, wrapped her ribs, gave her medicine and water, made her drink more water, then more. Now your phone, I said. Show me these pictures. Nancy's phone was cracked but functional. She pulled up the gallery with her good hand. 47 photographs, all of documents from Victoria Sterling's office. Bank statements, transfer orders, invoices from companies I'd never heard of. What am I looking at? I asked. Nancy took a shaky breath. The Hope Foundation is supposed to help sick children. Cancer treatments, surgeries, medical equipment. Victoria's been running it for 7 years. I know. She's very... I searched for the word. Prominent. She's a thief. Nancy's voice hardened. See these companies: Heartfelt Consulting, Morrison Analytics, Sterling Solutions. That one's especially bold. They're all shell companies. Fake. Victoria created them to funnel money out of the foundation. I looked closer at the numbers. These transfers, they're huge. 5 million, 8 million, 12 million. Over 7 years, she's stolen over $180 million. Money that was supposed to save children's lives. I felt sick all over again. And you confronted her about this. I thought... Nancy closed her eyes. I thought she'd have an explanation. Blake is on the foundation's board. I thought maybe it was some complicated tax thing I didn't understand. I gave her a chance to explain. What did she say? She turned white. Then she said we needed to drive out to look at some property. Said she'd explain everything there where we wouldn't be overheard. Nancy's hand moved to her stomach again. I was so stupid, Mom. I actually believed her. You're not stupid. You wanted to believe the best about your husband's family. I sat down beside her, careful not to jostle her injuries. What happened then? She drove us out to the quarry. I didn't even realize how isolated it was until we got there. She told me to get out, said the property was just through the trees. Nancy's voice started to shake. When I turned my back, she hit me with something heavy, a tire iron maybe. I fell and then she just kept hitting. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders and she leaned into me. She was saying things about you, about our family, about how my dirty blood was contaminating their perfect lineage, how I was trying to trap Blake with a baby that would ruin everything they'd built. A sob caught in Nancy's throat. Mom, I told her about the pregnancy. I thought it would stop her. I thought she'd realize she was attacking her own grandchild. What did she do? She laughed, said it was better this way, that the baby would be tainted anyway. The rage came back hot and fierce, but I kept my voice calm. Then what, Yum? Her phone rang. Someone called her, and she answered it. Talked for a minute about some meeting. Then she just got in her car and left. Left me there to die. We sat in silence. Outside wind rattled the windows. The wood stove crackled. Somewhere in the darkness, Victoria Sterling was probably sleeping peacefully in her mansion, confident she'd gotten away with murder. She had no idea what was coming. My phone buzzed. A text message. Vincent, got your message. What's Grandpa's lesson? I typed back. Protect family. Fight smart. Never give up. 3 dots appeared then. Be there by dawn. Don't do anything until I arrive. I set the phone down and looked at Nancy. Her eyes were closed, her breathing finally evening out as the medication kicked in. I pulled a blanket over her and kissed her forehead. Sleep, baby girl. Tomorrow we start fighting back. I stood up and walked to the window. The tracker from my truck sat on the kitchen counter, its little red light blinking steadily. Let them watch. Let them think I was right here, helpless and unaware. Tomorrow Vincent would arrive, and together we'd show Victoria Sterling what dirty blood could really do. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Nancy's broken face. Heard Victoria Sterling's voice saying dirty blood. Felt the weight of that GPS tracker in my hand. Instead, I sat by the wood stove and did what I always did in a crisis. Made lists. Medical supplies needed. More bandages. Antibiotics in case of infection. Prenatal vitamins. Ice packs. Evidence. Nancy's phone photos back up to cloud. Document the injuries photographs. Get copies of Nancy's medical records from 2 years ago. Legal. Find lawyer who can't be bought. Research embezzlement laws. Understand inheritance implications. That last one made me pause. Why would Victoria care so much about Nancy's baby? Sure, she was racist and cruel, but the rage Nancy described went beyond prejudice. There was something else. Something about the family legacy, about control. I added another note. Research Sterling Family Trust. At 5:47 a.m., headlights swept across my front window. A black pickup truck newer than mine, but still practical. Vincent. I opened the door before he could knock. My brother stood on the porch, a duffel bag in one hand, concern etched deep in his weathered face. 60 years old, but he moved like a man 20 years younger. Military training never leaves you. Betty. He pulled me into a hug. Strong arms. Steady. Show me. I led him to the living room where Nancy was sleeping. The bruises looked worse this morning, purple spreading to green and yellow at the edges. Her breathing was shallow, careful. Vincent knelt beside the couch. Didn't touch her, just looked. When he stood up, his jaw was tight. This wasn't random violence. This was methodical. I know. Someone wanted her to suffer, wanted her scared. He turned to me. Tell me everything. So I did. The phone call, finding Nancy in the woods, the GPS tracker, Victoria Sterling and the embezzlement, the pregnancy, every detail I could remember. Vincent listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. We can't go to the police, he finally said. I know that too. The Sterlings own half this county. Their lawyers would bury any complaint before it saw daylight. He pulled out his phone, started typing. But we have options. Good ones. What kind of options? The kind that come from 20 years in special operations and another 15 in private security. A slight smile. I know people. People who can access databases, trace money, find things others want to stay hidden. Vincent, I can't afford. Family doesn't pay family. He cut me off gently. Besides, this is exactly the kind of case my contacts love. Rich people thinking they're above the law, they'll do this for the satisfaction alone. Nancy stirred on the couch. Her eyes fluttered open, confused for a moment, then focusing on Vincent. Uncle Vincent, hey kiddo. He moved closer, his voice softening. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. She tried to smile, winced. Oh wait, that's basically what happened. That's my girl. Still making jokes. He pulled up a chair. Your mom told me what happened. I need you to tell me too. Every detail, no matter how small. Can you do that? Nancy nodded. Over the next hour, she went through the whole story again. Vincent asked questions, specific ones. What time did Victoria pick you up? What was she wearing? Did she say anything about where Blake was? Did anyone see you leave together? I watched my brother work and felt something loosen in my chest. Hope. We weren't alone in this. When Nancy finished, Vincent sat back. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we need to move you somewhere safer. This house is too exposed. Where? I asked. You remember Grandpa Nick's cabin up by Morrison Lake? I did. A small hunting cabin deep in the woods 12 miles from the nearest road. Grandpa had left it to Vincent in his will, and Vincent had kept it maintained. We used to fish there as kids. No one knows about that place except family, Vincent continued. No road access, just a trail. We can get Nancy there, keep her safe while we gather evidence. I can't walk 12 miles through the woods, Nancy said quietly. You won't have to. We'll take Betty's truck as far as we can, then I'll carry you the rest of the way. He looked at me. I'm going to call in a favor. Dr. James Wallace. Served with him in the 82nd Airborne. He's a civilian doctor, now works in Springfield. He can examine Nancy properly, make sure the baby's okay. Can we trust him? I had to ask. With my life. With yours. Vincent's eyes were steady. He'll come to the cabin, no questions asked. Nancy touched her stomach gently. The baby. I need to know if... We'll know soon, I promised. Vincent, what about the evidence, the documents on Nancy's phone? That's step 2. I'll get my tech guy to back everything up, create multiple copies and secure locations. He pulled out a laptop from his duffel. Then we start investigating. I want to know everything about Victoria Sterling. Her finances, her connections, her secrets. Why? Nancy asked. We already know she's stealing from the charity. Because people like Victoria Sterling don't break this badly over one thing. Vincent opened the laptop. She tried to kill you, Nancy. That's not about embezzlement. That's about something bigger. Something that threatens her entire world. He looked at both of us. We need to find out what that is, and then we use it to destroy her. We left at twilight. Vincent went first, scouting the route to make sure no one was watching my house. He came back with a report one sedan parked 300 yards down the road, 2 men inside. They're not even trying to hide, he said, which means they want you to feel watched. Or they're confident I can't do anything about it, I replied. That was their first mistake. We'd spent the day preparing. I'd called in sick to the church volunteer group I helped with, something I never did, claiming a stomach bug. Vincent had gone to town using back roads paid cash for supplies. Nancy had slept her body, desperately trying to heal. Now, with the GPS tracker placed carefully on my kitchen counter, still blinking, still telling the Sterlings I was home, we loaded Nancy into Vincent's truck. She'd changed into warm clothes, her arm in a proper sling I'd fashioned from an old sheet. Every movement hurt her, but she didn't complain. My brave girl. "The tracker," she whispered as Vincent started the engine. "Won't they wonder why you're here?" "Let them wonder," Vincent said. "Brother visiting his sister. Nothing suspicious about that." We drove with no headlights until we hit the main road. The sedan didn't follow. They thought they knew where I was. The route to the cabin took us through deep woods on roads that weren't really roads anymore. Old logging trails, mostly overgrown. Vincent's truck handled it better than my Chevy would have. "How much further?" Nancy asked. Her voice was tight with pain. "Another 20 minutes to where the trail starts. Then we walk." "I'll manage." But when we got there, when Vincent helped her out of the truck, her legs nearly buckled. The combination of injuries, shock, and pregnancy was taking its toll. "That's it," Vincent said. "Betty, you take the supplies. I've got Nancy." He lifted her like she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest. Nancy's good arm went around his neck. "I'm too heavy," she protested weakly. "You weigh less than my combat pack used to. Now hush and let me work." The walk took 40 minutes. I'd forgotten how remote the cabin was, how quiet the woods could be. My flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the narrow trail. Behind me, Vincent moved steadily, Nancy's head resting on his shoulder. Finally, the cabin appeared. Small, sturdy, built by Grandpa Nick's own hands back in 1967. Solar panels on the roof, Vincent's addition. A propane generator. Rain catchment system. Everything you'd need to stay off the grid. "Home sweet home," Vincent said, climbing the porch steps. Inside, the cabin smelled of old wood and kerosene. One main room with a kitchen area, a pot-belly stove, 2 narrow beds. A smaller room off to the side that used to be storage, but Vincent had converted into a bathroom with a composting toilet and a shower fed by the rainwater system. Vincent laid Nancy on one of the beds. I immediately started arranging pillows, trying to make her comfortable. "It's perfect," Nancy said, and she meant it. "Safe. Safe," Vincent agreed. He checked his watch. "Dr. Wallace should be here around 0800. I told him to park at the old service station 3 miles away, gave him directions to hike in." "He'll do that?" I asked. "Hike 3 miles to do a house call." "He owes me. I saved his life in Fallujah." Vincent shrugged like it was nothing. "Besides, James is good people. He'll want to help once he knows what's happening." That night we ate MREs, meals ready to eat, from Vincent's seemingly endless supply. Nancy managed half of one before exhaustion claimed her. I sat beside her bed, holding her good hand, watching her chest rise and fall. "She's strong," Vincent said quietly. He was at the small table, his laptop open. "Got your spirit." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "What if we can't protect her? What if the Sterlings find us? They won't. And even if they do..." He patted the holster at his hip. "I'm prepared." I looked at the gun, felt something shift inside me. 24 hours ago, I was a retired nurse who made jam and volunteered at church. Now I was hiding my pregnant daughter in the woods from people who wanted her dead. Life changes fast. "Vincent," I said, "show me how to use that." He looked up, surprised, then nodded slowly. "You sure?" "I'm sure. If something happens to you, if someone comes when you're gone," I met his eyes. "I need to be able to protect her." So at midnight at the woods behind the cabin, my brother taught me how to load, aim, and fire a Glock 19. The sound shattered the night silence, sent birds flying from trees. "Again," Vincent said. I fired again, and again, until my hands stopped shaking, until I could hit the target, a circle he'd drawn on a tree, 8 times out of 10. "Good," he said. "Really good. You're a natural." Grandpa taught us to shoot rifles when we were kids. Remember? I remember, but this is different. This is close range. This is... He paused. "This is what you do when someone is trying to hurt someone you love." I looked at the gun in my hands. "I can do it, Vincent. If I have to, I can pull the trigger." "I know you can, sis. I know." Dr. James Wallace arrived at 8:23 a.m. Early 50s, stocky build with the kind eyes of a man who'd seen too much suffering and still cared. He carried a battered medical bag and was barely winded from the hike. "Vincent," they clasped hands. "Been too long." "Thanks for coming, James." "You said it was urgent." Dr. Wallace turned to me, extended his hand. "You must be Betty, and this is Nancy." Nancy was awake, sitting up in bed. She looked even worse in the morning light. Dr. Wallace's expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten slightly. "Ms. Nancy," he said gently, "I'm going to examine you. Is that okay?" She nodded. He was thorough. Checked her pupils. Her reflexes palpated her ribs with careful hands. Asked questions about pain levels, dizziness, nausea. Then he took out a portable ultrasound machine no bigger than a laptop. "Military technology," he explained, seeing my surprise. "Designed for field hospitals. Not perfect, but it'll show us what we need to see." He squeezed gel on Nancy's stomach. She flinched at the cold. The machine hummed to life, and a grainy black and white image appeared on the screen. I held my breath. "There," Dr. Wallace said, pointing. "See that flutter? That's the heartbeat." And there it was, a tiny pulse of movement, fast and strong. Nancy started crying. Relief, joy, fear, all mixed together. I held her hand tight. "Baby looks good," Dr. Wallace continued. "Placenta is intact. No signs of abruption or bleeding. You got lucky, young lady. Very lucky." "The ribs?" Vincent asked from the doorway. "2 fractured, possibly 3. Wrist is a clean break, non-displaced. Betty did excellent work with the splinting." He looked at me with professional respect. "The concussion is moderate. She needs rest, limited movement, and monitoring for the next week." "What about the pregnancy?" Nancy whispered. Will the baby be okay?" "I see no reason why not, but you need to take it very easy. No stress, plenty of fluids, good nutrition." He pulled medication bottles from his bag. "These are safe for pregnancy. Pain management, anti-inflammatory, prenatal vitamins. Follow the directions exactly." He spent another 30 minutes with Nancy, then joined Vincent and me outside. "Whoever did this," he said quietly, "was trying to kill her. Multiple blows, deliberate targeting. The fact that she's alive is a miracle." "We know who did it," I said. "Are you going to the police?" "Can't. The attacker has too much influence." Dr. Wallace nodded slowly. "I suspected as much when Vincent called. Listen, I'm going to give you my satellite phone number. If anything changes, bleeding, severe pain, anything concerning, you call me immediately. I don't care what time it is." "Thank you," I said. "How much do we owe you?" "Nothing. Vincent saved my life. This doesn't even begin to repay that debt." He shook Vincent's hand again. "You keeping these ladies safe?" "With my life," Vincent replied. "Good." Dr. Wallace shouldered his bag. "I'll be back in 3 days to check on her. Same time." After he left, Vincent made coffee on the camp stove, strong and black. We sat on the porch watching morning mist rise from the lake. "She's going to be okay," I said. Not a question, a statement, willing it to be true. "She is," Vincent agreed. "And now we make sure she stays that way." He opened his laptop. "I've been doing research. Want to see what I found?" What Vincent had found made my blood run cold. The Hope Foundation. He began pulling up files on his screen. 7 years old, founded by Victoria Sterling with a mission to help terminally ill children access experimental treatments. Very noble. But I could hear the but in his voice. But in year 1, they raised $30 million. Impressive. By year 3, they were pulling in $60 million annually. Corporate donations, wealthy individuals, even some government grants. He showed me a spreadsheet. Numbers in neat columns. Millions flowing and millions flowing out. "Where's it going?" I asked. "That's where it gets interesting. Legitimate expenses account for about 40% actual medical treatments, administrative costs, fundraising. All normal. And the other 60% shell companies, consulting fees, legal services, business analytics." Vincent pulled up another document. "Nancy was right. These companies don't exist. I mean, they're registered, they have addresses. But when you dig deeper, nothing. No employees, no actual services rendered, just bank accounts receiving wire transfers." $180 million, I breathed. "Actually, it's closer to 200 million now, and that's just what I can track." He closed the laptop. "Betty people have killed for a lot less. But why attack Nancy? Why not just, I don't know, discredit her, pay her off?" That's what bothered me too, so I kept digging. Vincent's expression grew grave. 2 years ago, a journalist named Robert Chen started investigating the Hope Foundation. He was working for the Washington Post, had sources inside the charity world, and he was close to publishing. What happened? Car accident. Single vehicle late at night went off a bridge. Chen survived, but with severe spinal injuries. He's paralyzed from the waist down. The implications hung in the air like smoke. You think, Victoria, I think that accident was very convenient timing, and I think the official investigation was remarkably brief. Vincent pulled up news articles. No mechanical failure found, no evidence of another vehicle. Chen claimed someone forced him off the road, but there were no witnesses. Case closed. I felt sick. She's done this before. I think she has. And I think Nancy stumbled onto something that made Victoria desperate enough to try again. But what could be worse than embezzling $200 million? Vincent was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. I found something else. Something about Nancy. My heart started pounding. 2 years ago, Nancy had a miscarriage. You remember? I did. Nancy had been devastated. So had Blake, supposedly. She'd been about 8 weeks along, and one day she started bleeding. The doctor said it was stress, that it happened sometimes, that she could try again. She told me it was stress, I said slowly. That's what the medical report says, but I got access to the lab work. Vincent pulled up another file. There were traces of misoprostol in her blood work. That's a medication used to induce abortion. The world tilted. Someone was poisoning her, I whispered. Over several weeks, from what I can tell. Small doses, probably in food or drink. Enough to cause a miscarriage, but not enough to be immediately obvious. Victoria, that'd be my guess. I found pharmacy records, prescriptions written to fake names picked up at different locations, but the addresses all lead back to Sterling Properties. I stood up, my hands shaking, walked to the porch railing, gripped it until my knuckles went white. She killed Nancy's first baby, and Nancy never knew. I don't think Nancy was the only one who didn't know, Vincent said quietly. But Betty, I think Blake knew. No. I talked to someone who used to work at the Sterling Mansion, a housekeeper who got fired last year for theft, but she says it was because she asked too many questions. Vincent pulled up a recording on his phone. A woman's voice, nervous but clear. Mrs. Sterling had me mixing these powders into Nancy's food. Said they were vitamin special supplements for the pregnancy, but one day I saw the bottle. It wasn't vitamins. The woman on the recording paused, then continued. I told Mr. Blake. I thought he should know what his mother was doing. And he just looked at me. Didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, My mother knows what's best for this family. Don't interfere. The recording ended. I turned to face my brother. Blake knew his mother was poisoning his wife, knew she caused the miscarriage, and he did nothing. Worse than nothing. He helped cover it up, paid the housekeeper to leave quietly, made sure Nancy never found out. Why? My voice cracked. Why would he let his mother kill his own child? That's what we need to find out. But Betty, I have a theory. Want to hear it? I nodded, unable to speak. The Sterling family has a trust, a massive one controlling the majority of their business holdings. I found a copy of the trust documents. There's a clause, not unusual for families like this, that says the heir only gains full control of the company after producing an heir of their own. Blake can't access the money until he has a child. Exactly. But here's the thing. Blake is weak. Everyone knows it. He's always been under Victoria's thumb, making decisions based on what she wants, not what he wants. If he had a child, if he gained control of the trust, he might actually have to be independent, make his own choices. And Victoria couldn't risk that. Victoria has been running that family's empire for decades. Richard Sterling is the figurehead, but everyone knows Victoria pulls the strings. If Blake gained independence through parenthood, she'd lose control. The pieces clicked into place. But then Nancy got pregnant again, after 2 years of failed attempts after the miscarriage. Right, and this time Victoria couldn't use the same method. Too suspicious. So when Nancy discovered the embezzlement, Victoria saw an opportunity. Make it look like a robbery and accident. Get rid of Nancy and the baby in one move. That's why she left Nancy to die in the woods. That's why. We stood in silence. Inside the cabin, Nancy was sleeping unaware of this new horror. Unaware that her husband had stood by while his mother murdered their first child. We have to tell her, I finally said. Not yet. Not until she's stronger. She deserves to know. She does, but right now she needs to focus on healing, on keeping this baby safe. Vincent put a hand on my shoulder. When the time is right, we'll tell her everything, and then we'll make sure every single person who hurt her pays for it. Starting with Victoria Sterling. Starting with Victoria. But Betty, he squeezed my shoulder. Blake is part of this too. He's complicit, and Nancy needs to know that when she's ready to hear it. Over the next 2 days, Vincent worked like a man possessed. He had contacts I didn't know about. People from his military days, people from his security work, people who owed him favors or respected him enough to help for free. They fed him information piece by piece. Victoria Sterling's financial records, Richard Sterling's business dealings, Blake's credit card statements, even Gavin's, Blake's therapy records, though Vincent wouldn't tell me how he got those. Better you don't know, he said. Plausible deniability. Nancy was improving physically. The pain was less acute, her color better. She could walk around the cabin now, though she tired easily. We spent hours talking, reminiscing, avoiding the elephant in the room. But I saw her watching Vincent work, saw the questions in her eyes. On the third morning, Dr. Wallace returned. Examined Nancy, declared her healing well. The baby's heartbeat was strong. You're going to be fine, he told her. Both of you. After he left, Nancy came to the table where Vincent and I sat with the laptop. I need to know, she said. What you're finding. All of it. Vincent and I exchanged glances. Nancy, I began. I'm not fragile, Mom. I'm pregnant and beaten up, but I'm not fragile. She sat down, her jaw set in a way that reminded me so much of my grandmother Zora. These are my enemies, my life, my baby's life. I deserve to know what we're up against. So we told her. About the embezzlement, yes, but also about Robert Chen. About the systematic poisoning 2 years ago. About Blake's complicity. Nancy listened without interrupting. Her face went pale, then red, then very, very calm. When we finished, she was quiet for a long time. Blake knew, she finally said. Not a question. Yes, Vincent confirmed. He watched his mother poison me, watched me lose our baby, and said nothing. Yes. Another long silence. Then Nancy stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the lake. I want to see the evidence, the housekeeper's testimony, the medical records, everything. Vincent pulled up the files. Nancy read them all, every word. It took an hour. When she closed the laptop, her hands were steady. What's our next move? She asked. We approach Richard Sterling, Vincent said. Your father-in-law. He's the only one with enough power to stop Victoria. Why would he help us? Because we're going to give him something he values more than loyalty to his wife. Vincent pulled up another set of documents. Leverage. Over the next hour, he showed us what his team had found. Victoria's personal bank accounts. Separate from the family accounts, separate from the foundation. Hidden under her maiden name. $2.3 million. Money that Richard Sterling didn't know about. She's been skimming from the embezzlement, Vincent explained, taking a percentage for herself, building a nest egg. But that's not the best part, he continued. Remember how I said people kill for less? Well, Victoria has been planning her exit strategy for a while. He pulled up photos. Victoria Sterling with a young man, restaurant dinners, hotel entrances, airport lounges. Paul Nichols, Vincent said, 29 years old, works as a manager at one of the Sterling hotels. He and Victoria have been having an affair for 3 years. Oh my God, Nancy breathed. The hidden money, it's in a joint account with Paul. They're planning to run. Once Victoria has enough stashed away, she and her boy toy are going to disappear to somewhere without extradition. I looked at the photos. Victoria elegant and poised her hand on the young man's arm, smiling in a way I'd never seen her smile at Richard. Richard Sterling is old school, Vincent said. Family loyalty, honor, traditional marriage. He might tolerate Victoria's embezzlement. It's donor money, not his, but personal betrayal, an affair stealing from him directly. He'll burn her to the ground, Nancy finished. Exactly. But will he believe us? I asked. We're just the people his family tried to murder. Vincent's voice was hard. We have evidence. Bank records, witness testimony, photographs, medical documentation. Richard Sterling is a businessman. He understands evidence. Nancy touched her stomach. When do we meet with him? As soon as you're strong enough to travel. We'll set up the meeting on our terms. Public place people around. Somewhere he can't try anything even if he wanted to. And if he doesn't help us, Vincent smiled grimly. Then we go to Plan B. Every news outlet in the country. The The FBI, the IRS. We burn the whole Sterling empire to the ground and pray we survive the flames." "But we're hoping he helps," I said quickly. "We're hoping he helps," Vincent agreed, "because if he does, we get what we need without becoming targets ourselves." "What do we need?" Nancy asked. "Safety, justice, and a guarantee that Victoria Sterling never comes near you or your baby again." That night we made our final plans. Vincent would reach out to Richard Sterling through a secure email. Not threatening, just informative. A polite request for a meeting to discuss matters of mutual concern regarding the Hope Foundation and his family. "He'll be curious," Vincent said. Powerful men always are when someone approaches them carefully rather than with demands. "What if he tells Victoria?" Nancy worried. "He won't, not until he knows what we have. Richard Sterling didn't build an empire by being careless." "Where will we meet?" I asked. "The Old Park Diner, downtown across from the courthouse. Public lots of witnesses, but private enough for serious conversation." "When 3 days. Gives Nancy more time to heal, and it gives Richard time to prepare. He'll want to investigate us first, make sure we're legitimate." "Let him investigate," Nancy said. "He won't find anything except the truth." Over the next 3 days, we prepared. Vincent compiled all the evidence into a single comprehensive file. Documents, photos, statements, financial records. Everything organized and indexed. I helped Nancy practice what she'd say. Not memorizing a script, that would sound fake, but getting comfortable with the facts with her story. "You just tell the truth," I coached her. "You're a victim seeking justice. That's powerful." "I don't feel powerful," Nancy admitted. "I feel scared." Scared and powerful aren't opposites. Grandma Zora was scared every day of her life in this town, but she was the most powerful woman I ever knew. Nancy touched the bruises on her face. They were fading to yellow-green now, but still visible. Still a testament to what had happened. "Should I cover these?" she asked. "With makeup?" "No," Vincent said firmly. "Let him see what his family did. Let him see the truth." On the morning of the meeting, Nancy dressed carefully. Not too formal, not too casual. Dark pants, a simple blouse, a cardigan to hide her splinted wrist. She looked like what she was, a professional woman who'd been through hell. "You ready?" I asked. She nodded. "Then, Mom, thank you for everything. For believing me, for protecting me, for don't—" I stopped her. "You're my daughter. This is what family does." Vincent appeared in the doorway. "Time to go. I've got 3 of my guys already at the diner. 1 at the bar, 2 at tables. They'll look like regular customers, but they've got our backs." "Richard Sterling will have people too," Nancy said. "I'm counting on it. But in a public place, everyone will be on their best behavior." We took Vincent's truck, leaving my Chevy at the cabin. The GPS tracker was still at my house, still blinking, telling the Sterlings I was there. Let them think that. The drive to the city took 90 minutes. None of us spoke much. Nancy stared out the window, her hand on her stomach. I prayed silently. Vincent drove with calm focus. "Whatever happens," Vincent said as we approached downtown, "we stick together. If something feels wrong, we leave. No heroics." "Agreed," I said. Nancy agreed. The Old Park Diner sat on a corner all chrome and red vinyl. Through the windows I could see the lunch crowd. Business people, retirees, students. Normal life happening all around us. Vincent parked 2 blocks away. We walked to the diner looking like any other family out for lunch. Nancy walked between Vincent and me, her head high despite the pain I knew she still felt. Inside, the smell of coffee and hamburgers, the sounds of conversation and clinking dishes, and at a corner booth a tall man with silver hair. Richard Sterling. He saw us immediately, stood up, his face neutral, waiting. "That's him," Nancy whispered. "Remember," Vincent murmured, "we have the power here. We have the truth." We walked toward the booth, toward our confrontation, toward whatever came next. Richard Sterling watched us approach. His eyes moved from Nancy's bruised face to her splinted wrist. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, anger, I couldn't tell. "Ms. Nancy," he said quietly. "Ms. Vaughn, Mr. Vaughn." "Mr. Sterling," Vincent replied. "Thank you for meeting with us. Please, sit." We slid into the booth. Vincent took the outside seat position to see the entire diner. I sat next to Nancy, close enough to feel her trembling slightly. A waitress approached. Richard ordered coffee. We did the same. She left. Silence. You said you had information about the Hope Foundation, Richard finally said. His voice was controlled professional. And about my family. We do, Vincent said. He placed a leather folder on the table but didn't open it yet. But first I want you to look at your daughter-in-law. Richard's gaze moved to Nancy, really looked at her, at the fading bruises, the splint, the careful way she held herself. Who did this to you? He asked. Nancy met his eyes. Her voice was steady. Your wife, Mr. Sterling. Victoria did this to me. Something changed in his face, a crack in the professional mask. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Nancy didn't blink. She drove me to the old quarry outside town, hit me repeatedly with a tire iron, told me my dirty blood had no place in your family. Then she left me there to die. Why would my wife? Because I discovered she's been embezzling from the Hope Foundation. Nearly $200 million over 7 years funneled through shell companies. Richard Sterling went very still. You have proof of this. Vincent opened the folder, slid the first set of documents across the table. Richard read. His face remained impassive, but I saw his hand tighten on the papers, saw the muscle in his jaw working. This could be forged, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. It's not, Vincent replied, and that's just the beginning. One by one, Vincent laid out the evidence. The shell companies, the wire transfers, the systematic theft. Richard read each document carefully. Then Vincent showed him the photos. Victoria with Paul Nichols. Your wife has been having an affair for 3 years, Vincent said quietly, with a man young enough to be her son. Richard stared at the photos. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. There's more, Vincent continued. Victoria has hidden accounts, $2.3 million in an account she shares with Mr. Nichols. We believe she's planning to leave you, take the money and disappear. Richard carefully set down the photos, folded his hands on the table. When he spoke, his voice was deadly calm. What do you want? Nancy leaned forward. I want my daughter to be safe. I want justice for what Victoria did, and I want a guarantee that she never comes near my family again. Your daughter? Nancy's hand moved to her stomach. I'm 12 weeks pregnant. Your grandchild. Victoria tried to kill us both. For the first time, Richard Sterling's composure cracked. His eyes dropped to Nancy's stomach, then back to her face. My grandchild, he repeated softly. Yes. And you're certain my wife did this? I recorded her, Mr. Sterling. Nancy pulled out her phone with her good hand. Before she attacked me, she was ranting. I had my phone in my pocket recording. Would you like to hear it? Richard nodded. Nancy played the audio. Victoria's voice distorted but clear. Dirty blood contaminating our family. Should never have allowed this marriage. The baby will ruin everything. Better this way. Then sounds of violence. Nancy's cries. Victoria's heavy breathing. Enough, Richard said hoarsely. Enough. Nancy stopped the recording. The diner buzzed with normal life around us, but at our table the silence was absolute. What else? Richard finally asked. There's more. I can see it in your faces. Vincent and I exchanged glances. This was it, the final piece. 2 years ago, Vincent said carefully, Nancy had a miscarriage. I remember, Richard said. Tragic. It wasn't natural. Someone was poisoning her with abortifacient drugs. Small doses over several weeks. Richard closed his eyes. We have testimony from a former housekeeper. She was instructed to mix powders into Nancy's food. Powders Victoria claimed were vitamins. No, Richard whispered. And Mr. Sterling, Vincent's voice was gentle now. Your son knew. Blake knew his mother was poisoning his wife. He was told by the housekeeper, and he did nothing to stop it. The silence stretched, stretched, stretched. Then Richard Sterling put his face in his hands, and I realized he was crying. Richard Sterling cried for exactly 45 seconds. Then he straightened, wiped his eyes with a napkin, and became a businessman again. But something had changed. The coldness was gone. In its place, something rawer, more human. My son, he said hoarsely. My son knew and said nothing. Yes, Vincent confirmed. And my wife tried to murder a pregnant woman. Her own daughter-in-law. My grandchild. Yes. Richard looked at Nancy. Really looked at her. I owe you an apology. Multiple apologies. For my family's cruelty. For not seeing what was happening under my own roof. For building an empire and losing sight of what actually matters. Nancy's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Sterling. Please, call me Richard. He paused. May I ask you something? Of course. Why did you agree to meet with me? Why not go straight to the police, to the press? Why give me a chance? Nancy touched her stomach. Because this baby is your grandchild. And despite everything, I wanted to believe that somewhere in the Sterling family there was someone worth knowing. Someone who might care more about doing what's right than protecting the family name. Richard's throat worked. You're a better person than we deserve. I'm a mother protecting her child. That's all. No. Richard shook his head. You're much more than that. He pulled the documents back toward him, studying them again. His business mind working, calculating. If I help you, he said slowly, what exactly do you want? I want Victoria out of Nancy's life permanently, I said, speaking up for the first time. I want my daughter and grandchild safe, and I want justice. Justice or revenge? There's a difference, Vincent asked mildly. There is. Revenge is emotional. Justice is... Richard paused. Justice is making sure this never happens again. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. His finger hovered over a name. If I make this call, he said, there's no going back. For any of us. My family as we know it will cease to exist. My wife will be ruined. My son, he swallowed hard. My son will lose everything I built for him. He already lost it, Nancy said quietly. The moment he chose his mother over his wife, over his child. Richard nodded slowly. Then he pressed the call button. James, he said when someone answered. It's Richard Sterling. I need you at my office in 2 hours. Bring the divorce papers we discussed last year. Yes, those ones. And James, make sure they're ironclad. I want her to walk away with nothing. He hung up, made another call. Peter Sterling, I need a complete audit of the Hope Foundation. Every transaction, every account going back 7 years. I don't care if it takes a month. I want to know where every penny went. Yes, I know what you'll find. Do it anyway. Another call. This is Richard Sterling. I need to speak with Agent Morrison. Yes, I'll hold. He looked at us while he waited. FBI, Financial Crimes Division. Old friend from college. He's going to love this case. Mr. Sterling, Vincent said carefully. Are you sure once you involve the FBI? I'm sure. Richard's voice was firm. My wife committed fraud on a massive scale. She attempted murder. She needs to face the consequences. When Agent Morrison came on the line, Richard spoke clearly and calmly, outlined the embezzlement, offered full cooperation, promised to deliver all evidence. After that call, he made 3 more, his lawyers, his accountant, his head of security. We sat and watched him dismantle his family with the same efficiency he'd probably used to build his empire. Finally, he set down the phone and looked at Nancy. The divorce will be final within a month. I'm citing irreconcilable differences publicly, but the real reasons will be documented privately. Victoria will be given a choice: leave the country quietly or face criminal prosecution. I suspect she'll choose exile. And Blake? Nancy asked. Richard's face hardened. Blake is removed from the company effective immediately. He'll receive a small monthly allowance, enough to live on, nothing more. He is no longer my heir. Richard, that's not, Nancy began. It's exactly necessary. Richard's voice was steel. My son watched his mother poison you, helped cover up the death of his own child. He doesn't deserve the Sterling name, and he certainly doesn't deserve the Sterling fortune. He leaned forward, his eyes on Nancy's stomach. But that child does. Your daughter or son. My grandchild. If you'll allow it, I'd like to make them my primary heir. Nancy's mouth fell open. You can't. I can, and I will. The trust will be restructured. Your child will inherit everything when they come of age. Until then, you'll be the trustee with full access to whatever funds you need. Richard, that's too much. It's not nearly enough. He pulled out a business card, wrote on the back. This is my personal number. Not my secretary, not my assistant. Me. If you or your mother need anything, protection, medical care, legal support, anything, you call me directly. I found my voice. Why are you doing all this? Richard looked at me. His eyes were tired, sad, but clear. Because Ms. Vaughn, I built an empire and lost my family in the process. I ignored my wife's cruelty, excused my son's weakness, and told myself that success justified everything. But looking at Nancy now, seeing what my family did, he shook his head. I can't change the past, but I can try to do right by the future. He stood up. We stood too. Where will you live? He asked Nancy. Your house with Blake. I'll never go back there, Nancy said firmly. Good. I own several properties. Take your pick, or I can buy you something new, whatever you want. Mr. Sterling Richard, that's not necessary. Humor an old man, he said with a slight smile. Let me try to make amends. He shook Vincent's hand, then mine. Finally, he turned to Nancy. I failed you, he said simply. I'm sorry. If you give me a chance, I'd like to be the grandfather your child deserves. But I'll understand if you say no. Nancy looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something I didn't expect. She hugged him. Richard Sterling, the powerful businessman who'd just destroyed his own family, hugged his pregnant daughter-in-law and cried again. When we left the diner, the sun was shining. The world looked different somehow. Brighter, like we'd stepped out of shadow into light. Did that really just happen? Nancy asked as we walked to Vincent's truck. It did, Vincent said. He was smiling, actually smiling. You did good, kiddo. Real good. We all did, I corrected. Nancy stopped walking, turned to look at us. Mom, Uncle Vincent, I need to say something. We waited. A week ago, I was lying in the woods, beaten and terrified. I thought my life was over, that I'd failed my baby before they were even born. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But you saved me. Not just my life. You gave me back my strength, reminded me who I am, where I come from. She touched her chest. This dirty blood Victoria hated so much. It's the best part of me. It's Grandma Zora's courage. It's Grandpa Nick's honor. It's you, Mom, with your steady hands and steadier heart. It's Uncle Vincent and his loyalty. It's everything good and strong and worth fighting for. I pulled her into my arms. Vincent wrapped his arms around both of us. Damn right it is, Vincent said gruffly. We stood there in the parking lot, 3 generations of Vaughn strength, and we cried together. 5 days later, Vincent's phone rang at 6:47 a.m. We were at the cabin. Nancy was sleeping late, which Dr. Wallace said was normal for pregnancy. I was making coffee on the camp stove. Vincent was outside doing his morning check of the perimeter. He came back inside his phone in his hand, his expression unreadable. That was Richard, he said. It's done. What's done? Victoria Sterling is gone. Left the country last night. Private plane to Santiago, Chile. From there, who knows, but she won't be back. I sat down heavily. Just like that. Just like that. Richard gave her a choice leave voluntarily with a small settlement or face FBI investigation fraud charges, attempted murder charges. She chose exile. How small a settlement? $200,000. Enough to start over somewhere cheap. Not enough to live the life she's used to. Vincent poured himself coffee. And there's more. Paul Nichols, the boyfriend. He didn't go with her. What, Turns out young Paul was more interested in Victoria's money than Victoria herself. When he found out she was leaving with almost nothing, he decided to stay. Actually, Richard offered him a deal, testify against Victoria if needed, and keep his job. Paul took it. So Victoria's alone. Completely alone, which given what she did seems appropriate. I thought about it. Victoria Sterling, who'd had everything, money, power, status, was now a fugitive in a foreign country, betrayed by her lover, abandoned by her family. Is it wrong that I don't feel sorry for her? I asked. It would be wrong if you did, Vincent replied. Nancy appeared in the doorway wrapped in a blanket. Was that Richard? Vincent filled her in. Nancy listened quietly, her hand on her stomach. And Blake? She finally asked. Still here. Still insisting he wants to talk to you. Richard says Blake's been calling him constantly, begging for another chance, claiming he's changed. He hasn't changed, Nancy said flatly. He's just scared because his money's gone. Probably true, Vincent agreed. Richard cut him off from the company, the trust everything. Blake gets $2,000 a month, that's it. $2,000, Nancy laughed without humor. That won't even cover his car payment. He had to sell the car, and the house. Everything's being liquidated to repay what Victoria stole. I watched Nancy process this, watched her face trying to gauge how she felt. Satisfied, sad, angry. Good, she finally said. He deserves it. But her voice cracked on the last word. Nancy, I went to her. I'm okay. She wiped her eyes. I loved him, Mom. For 8 years I loved him. I thought we were building a life together. And the whole time he was letting his mother destroy me. I know, baby. How did I not see it? How was I so blind? Love makes us blind sometimes, Vincent said gently. That's not a weakness. That's what makes you human. Nancy nodded, crying openly now. I should hate him. I want to hate him. But mostly I just feel empty. That'll pass, I promised. Not today, maybe not tomorrow. But one day you'll wake up and realize you haven't thought about him at all. And then you'll know you're free. When do we go home? Nancy asked. To the real world. Richard sent news about that too, Vincent said. He pulled up something on his phone. He bought you a house. He what? A house. In Pine Creek, about 10 miles from Betty. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, big kitchen, fenced yard. He said he knows you told him not to, but he did it anyway. Considers it a gift for the baby. Vincent showed us the pictures. A beautiful craftsman-style home surrounded by trees with a view of the mountains. It's gorgeous, Nancy breathed. And it's yours. Deed is in your name only. Fully paid off. No mortgage, no strings attached. Nancy stared at the photos. I can't accept this. You can, I told her. Richard is trying to make amends the only way he knows how, with money and property. Let him. You've earned it. Have I? Nancy looked at me. I just married the wrong man. That's all I did. You survived, Vincent corrected. You protected your child. You stood up to people who wanted to destroy you. That's worth more than any house. Nancy touched the screen, zooming in on a photo of the nursery. A home for my baby. A real home. Our home, I said. I'll be there every day if you want me. I want you. Nancy grabbed my hand. I can't do this alone, Mom. You won't have to. Ever. 3 months later, on a sunny April morning, I stood in the kitchen of Nancy's new house and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The house was everything the photos promised and more. Warm wood floors, big windows letting in Colorado sunshine, a kitchen big enough for me to bake all the pies I wanted, and upstairs a nursery painted soft yellow waiting for a baby. Nancy was 6 months pregnant now, her belly round and obvious, her face glowing with that pregnancy radiance people talk about. The bruises had faded months ago, the wrist had healed, the ribs had knit together, but the best healing was inside. Mom, Nancy called from the porch. Come see. I walked outside to find Nancy standing in the garden, her hands on her hips, surveying the raised beds Vincent had built. We're going to have so many tomatoes, she said happily, and beans and peppers, enough to can for winter. Just like we used to, I said, just like we used to. Nancy turned to me. Thank you. For what? For teaching me. Canning, gardening, surviving, being strong. She paused. Being you. I hugged her carefully, mindful of the belly between us. You were always strong, sweetheart. You just forgot for a while. I won't forget again. A car pulled up the drive. Richard Sterling's sensible sedan. Not a limo, not a luxury car, just a regular vehicle. He'd been coming every 2 weeks, always calling ahead, never staying too long. He'd changed too. Less formal, more present. Like he'd remembered how to be human instead of a mogul. Richard, Nancy waved. He got out carrying a large box. Morning, Nancy, Betty. Brought something for the nursery. Inside was a rocking chair. Handmade, beautiful, with a small plaque on the back. For baby Sterling Vaughn with love from Grandpa. Sterling Vaughn? Nancy asked. Well, the baby should have both family names, don't you think? Richard set up the chair in the nursery, testing it. This was my grandmother's. My mother rocked me in it. I'd like you to have it. Nancy ran her hand over the smooth wood. It's perfect. How are you feeling? Any problems? None? Dr. Wallace says everything looks great. The baby's kicking like a soccer player. Good. That's good. Richard sat in the chair, looked around the cheerful room. Do you know if it's a boy or girl yet? Not yet. We decided to wait. Want it to be a surprise. My grandmother used to say girls kick harder. Something about female determination coming early. He smiled. I'm hoping for a girl. The Sterling family could use more strong women. We could use fewer weak men, Nancy said pointedly. Richard's smile faded. Has Blake tried to contact you again? No, not since I sent the cease and desist letter. Good. If he does call me immediately. I will. They sat in comfortable silence. This had become their relationship, cautious, respectful, slowly building trust. Richard was keeping his distance, letting Nancy set the pace. But he showed up, every 2 weeks without fail. That consistency meant something. 2 weeks later, I was alone at Nancy's house while she was at a prenatal appointment. I was baking bread, the kitchen warm and smelling of yeast, when I heard a car. Not Richard's sedan, a rental car, and Blake Sterling climbed out. I dried my hands and met him at the door. Didn't open it. Ms. Vaughn, he said through the screen. I need to see Nancy. She's not here. When will she be back? That's none of your business. Blake looked terrible. Thinner, unshaven, his expensive clothes wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Please, he said. I just want to talk to her. 5 minutes. No. Ms. Vaughn, I know you hate me. You have every right to. But Nancy is still my wife. Ex-wife. The divorce was finalized last week. He flinched. Legally, yes. But we were married for 8 years. Doesn't that count for something? It counts for 8 years of betrayal and lies. I made mistakes. You watched your mother poison Nancy. You knew about the first baby. You said nothing. My voice was hard. That's not a mistake, Blake. That's a choice. I was weak. His voice broke. I know that. I've been in therapy. I'm trying to be better. If Nancy would just give me one chance to do what hurt her again, watch someone else hurt her again. No, I'd protect her this time, I swear. Where were you when she needed protection before? He had no answer for that. A car turned into the driveway. Nancy's car, Vincent driving. Nancy in the passenger seat. Blake straightened up. Nancy? Vincent was out of the car, instantly moving between Blake and Nancy. What are you doing here? I need to talk to my wife. Ex-wife, Vincent corrected coldly. And she doesn't want to talk to you. Nancy had gotten out of the car. She walked slowly up the path, her hand on her belly, her face calm. It's okay, Uncle Vincent, she said. Let him talk. Nancy, you don't have to. I know, but I want to. She looked at Blake. You have 2 minutes. Blake's words came tumbling out. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I am. I was weak and stupid, and I let my mother control everything. But I'm different now. I've been going to therapy 3 times a week. I quit drinking. I'm trying to be better. That's good, Nancy said neutrally. I want another chance. I want to be a father to our baby. I want us to be a family again. No. The single word was firm, final. Nancy, please. You watched your mother poison me, Blake. You knew I'd lose our first child, and you did nothing. How can I ever trust you again? It was wrong. It was all wrong. But I can change. You can change for yourself, but not for me. Not for our baby. Don't I have a right to know my child? Nancy's eyes flashed. Rights, you want to talk about rights? You gave up your rights when you stood by and let your mother commit murder. The baby didn't die. But they would have if Mom hadn't found me. Nancy's voice rose. Your mother beat me and left me in the woods to die. And you know what Blake part of me thinks you knew. Maybe not the exact plan, but you knew your mother was dangerous. You knew she hated me, and you did nothing. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Nancy was shouting now. Your mother calling my blood dirty, was that fair, losing our first baby? Was that fair, being beaten while pregnant? Was that fair? Blake was crying. Nancy, please. I love you. No, Nancy shook her head. You love the idea of me, the trophy wife who made you look good, but you never loved me enough to protect me, to choose me over your mother. I'll choose you now, I promise. It's too late. Nancy's voice softened, became sad. I'm sorry, Blake, I really am, because I did love you once. But that love died in the woods with all my blood, and it can't come back. What about my child? This isn't your child. Legally, financially, emotionally, you have no claim. Richard is the grandfather. He'll be involved if he wants to be. But you... Nancy looked at him with pity. You're a stranger who shares some DNA, that's all. You can't keep me from my own kid. I can. I will. The courts agree. Nancy pulled a paper from her purse. Restraining order. You come within 500 feet of me or my child, you go to jail. Sign it. Nancy. Sign it or I call the police right now and tell them about your harassment. Blake stared at the paper, at Nancy, at her pregnant belly. Finally, with shaking hands, he signed. Nancy took the paper back. Goodbye, Blake. I hope you find peace, but you won't find it with me. She turned and walked into the house. I followed, leaving Vincent to deal with Blake. Inside, Nancy collapsed into a chair. She wasn't crying, just staring at her hands. I thought I'd feel better, she said. Telling him off, standing up for myself. But I just feel tired. You did the right thing, I said. Did I? What if he really has changed? What if keeping him from the baby is cruel? Nancy, I knelt in front of her. Listen to me. Blake had 8 years to change. 8 years to choose you over his mother. He didn't. And now that he's lost everything, now that he's desperate, he wants another chance. That's not love. That's fear. I know. I do know that. But she touched her belly. Every child deserves a father. This child will have everything they need. Love, security, family. They'll have you, me, Vincent, Richard. People who actually put them first. And a name, Nancy said softly. Vaughn. There'll be a Vaughn, not a Sterling. Best name there is, I said. She smiled. Finally smiled. Yeah, it is. 2 months later at 3:17 a.m., Nancy's water broke. I was staying with her now, sleeping in the guest room just in case. The moment I heard her gasp, I was up and moving. It's time, she said, excited and terrified at once. Okay, let me call Vincent and Dr. Wallace. Already texted them. Nancy grinned through a contraction. Modern technology, Mom. Dr. Wallace had arranged for Nancy to deliver at a small private hospital an hour away. Somewhere the Sterling name meant nothing. Somewhere we'd be safe and anonymous. Vincent drove. I sat in the back with Nancy holding her hand through contractions. I'm scared, she admitted. That's normal. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not ready to be a mother? Nancy, you've been a mother since the moment you found out you were pregnant. You protected this baby through hell. You're ready. The labor was long, 14 hours. Nancy was brave through all of it, but I could see her weakening toward the end. I can't, she gasped at hour 12. Mom, I can't do this. You can. You are. It hurts so much. I know, baby, but you're almost there. Just a little more. At 5:47 p.m., with the golden light of sunset streaming through the hospital window, Nancy's daughter was born. The first cry was strong, loud, furious. That's my girl, Nancy sobbed. That's my strong girl. They placed the baby on Nancy's chest. Tiny, pink, perfect. Hello, Zora, Nancy whispered. Welcome to the world. Zora Vaughn, named after her great-great-grandmother, the woman who'd survived hate and prejudice with her head held high. I stood at the bedside, tears streaming down my face, looking at my daughter and granddaughter together. She has your eyes, I said. She has your stubbornness, Nancy replied. I can already tell. Dr. Wallace checked them both, declared them healthy, left us alone. Vincent appeared in the doorway. He'd been in the waiting room keeping watch. When he saw the baby, his tough guy exterior crumbled. Hey there, little one, he said softly. Welcome to the family. An hour later, Richard arrived. He knocked gently, waited for permission before entering. May I, he asked, gesturing to the baby. Nancy nodded. Meet your granddaughter, Zora Vaughn. Richard took the baby carefully, like she was made of glass. Looked down at her tiny face. Hello, Zora, he said. His voice was thick. I'm your grandfather, and I promise you I'll be better for you than I was for your father. I'll protect you. Always. Zora yawned, completely unimpressed. We all laughed. She's perfect, Richard said. Absolutely perfect. He handed her back to Nancy reluctantly. I won't stay long. You need rest, but thank you for letting me be part of this. Thank you, Nancy said, for being the grandfather she deserves. After Richard left, after Vincent went to get coffee after the nurses finished their checks, it was just Nancy, Zora, and me. Mom, Nancy said quietly, do you think Grandma Zora would be proud? I know she would be. Tell me about her again, the whole story. So I did. I told her about Zora, who fell in love with a white man in 1945, who married him despite the danger, who raised 5 children in a town that called them dirty blood, who never once bowed her head or dimmed her light. She used to tell me I said that the hardest thing about being black in America wasn't the hate. It was watching your children face the same hate and not being able to stop it. But she survived, Nancy said. She thrived, and so will you. So will Zora. Nancy looked down at her daughter. She's going to know where she comes from. All of it, the good and the bad. She's going to know about Grandma Zora and Grandpa Nick, about you and Uncle Vincent, about dirty blood and survival and strength. And love, I added. Most of all, love. Most of all, love, Nancy agreed. She closed her eyes, exhausted but content. Zora slept on her chest, their hearts beating together, and I sat beside them, 3 generations of Vaughn women, and felt something I'd thought I'd lost. Hope. 6 months later, I was in Nancy's kitchen, the same place I'd stood when Blake showed up. But everything was different now. Nancy sat on the floor of the living room playing with Zora. The baby was sitting up now, grabbing at toys, laughing at everything. Vincent was there too, making funny faces that sent Zora into giggles. Richard visited earlier, brought age-appropriate toys, and left tactfully before dinner. He'd become a regular fixture in our lives. A good grandfather. The kind Blake never would have been. "Mom," Nancy called. "Come here. She's trying to crawl." I came out to watch. Zora was on her stomach, pushing up on her little arms, determined to move forward. "That's it, baby," Nancy encouraged. "You can do it." Zora lunged forward, fell on her face, immediately pushed back up and tried again. "Stubborn," Vincent said approvingly. "Gets it from her grandma." "And her great-great-grandma," I added. Nancy picked up. Zora kissed her head. The baby grabbed Nancy's hair and tried to eat it. "You know what I realized?" Nancy said. "Victoria Sterling tried to destroy us because she thought our blood was dirty, inferior, wrong." She looked at me. But she was wrong. This blood, Grandma Zora's blood, your blood, my blood, Zora's blood, it's not dirty. It's strong. It's survivor's blood. "It's gold," I said. "It's gold," Nancy agreed. She stood up, holding Zora against her hip, walked to the window where late afternoon sun painted everything in amber light. "I used to be ashamed," Nancy continued quietly, "growing up being one of the few black families in town. I wanted to fit in, be less visible. And when I married Blake, I thought I'd finally made it. Finally proved I was good enough. Baby. But I was wrong. I didn't need to prove anything. And marrying into the Sterling family didn't make me better. It made me forget who I was." She turned to face us. "I'm not ashamed anymore. Not of our family, our history, our blood. I'm proud." "As you should be," Vincent said. "And Zora will be proud too," Nancy continued. "She'll know she comes from women who survived things that should have broken them. From men who fought for what was right, even when it was hard. From people who were called dirty, but were actually gold." Zora babbled, waving her arms. "Yes, that's right," Nancy laughed. "You tell them, baby girl." I walked over, put my arm around Nancy's waist. Together we looked out the window at the mountains, the setting sun, the world that had tried so hard to break us and failed. "What would you do different?" Nancy asked suddenly. "If you could go back, would you warn me not to marry Blake?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," I finally said, "because then you wouldn't have Zora. But I went through hell." "You did, and you came out stronger. That's not a justification for the hell. Victoria Sterling and Blake deserve every bit of punishment they got. But you survived Nancy. More than that, you thrived." Nancy nodded slowly. "I guess I did." "You know what Grandma Zora used to say? She said they can call our blood dirty, but they can't stop it from flowing. We endure. We persist. We survive. And one day our children will live in a world where blood is just blood, and love is just love, and survival is just living." "Did she really say that?" Nancy asked. "Word for word. The night before she died, she called me to her bedside and made me promise to remember. Have we made it to that world yet, the one she dreamed about?" I looked at Zora, at her beautiful brown skin, her bright eyes, her fearless determination to crawl even though she kept falling. "Not yet," I said. but we're closer. Every generation gets a little closer. And Zora will get closer still, Nancy said. Yes, she will. We stood together 3 generations in that moment. 4 if you counted the spirit of Grandma Zora that seemed to fill the room. Outside the sun set, inside warmth and love and the feeling of finally being home. Thank you, Nancy said suddenly, for everything. For saving me, protecting me, believing me. For being exactly who you are. You're my daughter, I said simply. That's what mothers do. No, Nancy shook her head. Not all mothers. Not Victoria. What you did, risking everything to protect me, that's not common. That's special. That's gold. She kissed my cheek. Then she handed me Zora. Your turn, Grandma. I took my granddaughter, felt her warm weight in my arms, looked into eyes that held the future. Hello, baby girl, I whispered. Your name is Zora, and you come from a long line of women who refused to break, who survived, who thrived. And you will too. Zora grabbed my finger with surprising strength, held on tight, just like the women before her, just like the blood that ran in her veins. Not dirty blood, survivor's blood, gold.